And I'm delighted to present this award to you, the last award of the day, for your great lifetime achievement in mathematics. And it's Mohammed Kamal Ouf.
Dear President, dear colleagues, thank you very much for this prize. I am working professor of mathematics in the Mansoura Department, Faculty of Science, University of Faculty of Science, University of Mansoura. I am interested in complex analysis with my students and solve many problems in univalent functions, multivalent functions, monomorphic functions with negative coefficients or positive coefficients. Also, we interested in harmonic functions. Now we solve many problems in applications of differentiations, subpopulations of first order or second order, and we find its relations with integral operators or differential operators. Again, many thanks for my presence. I am also for many thanks for my colleagues for this prize. Thank you.
Well, as I've been speaking for quite a while, I intend to say very little, but we are moving towards quite an early lunch. There are people to thank. Before I do that, I've been pondering on a word. The word is familiar, that word familiar. In our work that we do, and in whatever research we do, we can be searching for the other thing or the new thing, and yet the answer may well indeed lie in the familiar. And sometimes we reject the familiar or overlook the familiar merely because it is familiar, I would suggest. It is worth, I think, in the work we do to look over the familiar to see if we can find that missing link or something that's been overlooked. And perhaps our function anyway today in the world is for the intellecting and adorning of the world in which we live. And we've heard that celebrated both in prose and references to poetry too in the speeches today. And I also sometimes think of a work written by Bacon, Francis Bacon, that great utilitarian. He wrote a fiction work called New Atlantis, in which he established in fiction the first university on an island with all the great intellects and all the great minds of the time, purely I think because he was afraid that with the Reformation, the religious Reformation debate going on in this country, that science, the world of endeavour just gathering pace then in the 17th century, would be lost. And so he gathered together in fiction all the greatest minds and the greatest experimenters and everything that could be found during his day. And amazingly, he did imagine at that time submarines and flying machines and all kinds of new technologies that we now practice and now have discovered, which he had already in his head at that time. Although a little work of fiction, New Atlantis, the island of the first university of the world, is a worthy read for those who want a little bit of supplementary light reading on top of the heavy work, in vitro work, often in a lab somewhere. So there's Bacon's New Atlantis, well worth a little addition to your scholarship, if I could suggest that. To thank the hotel here for this space, and to thank them for their good food. It has been good food. It's not always the case that you get it. To thank all those who've helped to organize this, the senior members that have given a lot to it, to Adrian to the president, Jeremy in particular. And I've already spoken of Francesco Fucilla, the founding father, the very worthy man, to call himself that. But I won't say much about him because he'll tell me off for that later. I want to be left out of it. And yet he is actually in it up to his neck, if I put it that way, in a polite and very complimentary way. But without that endeavour, this growing academy, and I say growing because I'm not a founder member or even established as a member. I'm very new to it, but happy to be with you, to be with all those who've served it well in 4 years, and to come along and be a speaker at it and make the awards is for me an honour to go about that and to meet the people in person who've worked so well in their lives and who are celebrated, but in a kind of iconic way and in a kind of modest way too. It's singing to the world a little bit, certainly, but it is more than that. It is bringing out the person who has given such a great deal, and in the smallness of this room, to bring that out in our way of acknowledging is a great thing to do, because we meet the person as well, and the person, wherever that person is from, speaks so very beautifully and well about where they're at and what they want to do and how they believe in the fields in which they work. And it's so good, I should say as well, to see two things happening. Those brave enough, I've tried giving a speech myself in French and was frightened to death of doing it, and I regretted doing it, but those whose second language, or maybe third language, is English, and who will come here to have a go in English and make themselves very comprehensible, very appealing, and very indeed convincing too. That is a most commendable spirit, a most commendable thing to do, and I thank those two. I mention that when I'm abroad quite a lot, and they say to me, they say, well, that's normal, I speak 4 languages anyway, it's not a problem. And I think, well, maybe not for you, but come to the UK and we'll be enormously impressed with your versatility, your linguistic versatility, and we are. And a little bit humbled sometimes by it as well. Not all of us, there are people here today from England who can speak more than 1 language, as we've heard. But a lot of us cannot do that. I can get by in 1 or 2, and many people don't get by in other than English, because English is now the lingua franca across the world, but it shouldn't be like that. To also note another matter, how many of our guests today have given warm contributions to their wives in particular, and some of the wives are in themselves too, as themselves, outstanding academics. I've met more than one professor of chemistry or biology who is the wife of an awardee today. But it was lovely to hear that acknowledgement to family and to wife by the men who've endeavoured in their years. It was a great thing to hear. And to give thanks to those I've missed out in any way, just to mention the senior members, the board members of the Academy too, without naming them in particular. I've named 1 or 2, which I should do, and wives who are here in that great support, and wives who are professionals anyway in their great field of science, who come to honour their husbands today, a great thing to see. And as a collective, as a community, those beyond the immediate awardees, thank you for coming, thank you for speaking so generously together, and thank you for remembering an occasional coming to this occasion, which will be a symbol, as each year will be, of a set of people who have done certain things and will be remembered for that. So I'm going to formally close the ceremony, if I may, and leave you with that thought, or the thought of the great man and the great wife working together, and also their families as well. That's aside from their publications and whatever. The human side is so much as important, if not more so. So it just leaves me to say a final thank you and look forward to having lunch with you and seeing more of you when we meet very shortly. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as we all have. And with my thanks.